guys, Brad the Browncoat Brony here, and I am finally back for the time being. Well, here it is, the sequel you've all been begging me to do, Legacy of the Dark. I finally found time to do it. Thank you all for being so patient with me, and to reward you all for your patience, I decided to do something a little special for this. The narration for this fic will be done by my good friend over in the UK, Limey reads. I'll still be doing the character voices, but he'll be narrating. He's an amazing narrator, and after you watch, or listen rather, to this video, please subscribe to his channel. I'll link it in the description. Now, again, before we start, this is a sequel fic, so for those of you who haven't read or listened to Kiss of the Dark yet, pause the video. There's a link to the first part of the original story in the description. Catch up on all 6 parts, and then come back here. But with all that being said, let's get started, and I hope you enjoy.
Legacy of the Dark by Soothing Stone. Chapter 1. His Lingering Touch. In the city of Canterlot, it was once again time for Celestia to raise the sun and Luna to set the moon. Even though the sisters were miles away from the peaceful town of Ponyville, the ponies there would feel their influence. Once the Sun Princess finished with her daily royal duty, they would get out of bed and get ready for the new day. Fillies would go to school, colts and mares would go to work, and a certain dragon would be snoring in his bed. Spike rested in his tiny bed, in the middle of another rarity dream. His face was shoved into the pillow, and the blanket was lying off to the side. Granted, it wasn't dignified for his species, but given how long of a day he had, his body shut down the moment it felt the comfort of the bed. He was still snoring, and he turned over on his side to get more comfortable. Sunlight passed through the window and filled Twilight's house with its glow. It went over Spike's eyes, and it disturbed his sleep. He slowly woke up, bags hanging over his eyes. The moment he realized it was morning, he sprung up in his bed and panicked. He looked out the window and slapped himself in the face when he realized what time it was.
I overslept!
He cried.
I can't fail Twilight now!
The dragon got up on his feet and hastily draped the blanket over his bed. It missed and hit the floor, but he had no time to fix that. He had breakfast to make for his adoptive sister, and fast. He scrambled for the kitchen, his body still half asleep, and stumbled for the pantry. There was a box of cereal he found in there, and he poured it all into the bowl. It spilled out of the bowl onto the floor, but he didn't care. He had to make up for the lost time.
Sorry, Twilight. I didn't mean to sleep that late. I know you said I didn't need to do anything for you, but I want to do this for you. Anything that can make you more comfortable.
Just as he was about to pour some sweet Apple Acres milk into the bowl, he saw Twilight's bed for the first time today. And the bed was empty. He dropped everything and raced over to her bed. He searched everywhere for anything at all that would tell him where Twilight Sparkle had gone. There wasn't a note. There wasn't a letter from Celestia asking her to come somewhere. Nothing. Spike started to hyperventilate, and his mind raced with all the bad things that could be happening to the princess.
No. This is not good. I promised to look after her, and now she's gone. Please, Twilight, be here somewhere.
But before he could hire a whole team of guards to look after her, like he was thinking, he stopped in his tracks when he heard something. It was hooves clopping on the ground downstairs, originating from the basement. Spike sighed in relief. It was a good thing that Twilight was still in the house, so he knew he hadn't failed her after all. He went downstairs to the basement. By that point in time, the room was completely changed. It hardly resembled its old self, save for a few spare books shoved to the side. The room had Twilight's cutie mark on the carpet, done like a room in Celestia's castle. The walls were painted with cute and cuddly animals, all done by Pinkie Pie herself. There was a diaper-changing station off to the side, and a bunch of fold toys were put up neatly by the wall. But the thing that got Spike's attention was the crib in the middle. It was big and made out of wood. But that wasn't the important thing. Instead, he noticed a familiar purple alicorn was gazing down at the crib. She smiled as she saw it was ready for use, and she peered down at her belly. It was big and swollen, and she rubbed over it with a hoof. She was almost crying from the sight, and she didn't notice Spike standing in the room with her.
"This is your room,"
Twilight said to the foal inside.
"All of this is for you. I hope you like it. We all worked hard on it for you, because we want the best for you."
She felt a kick inside her stomach. It hurt every time the foal did that, but the joy it brought was worth it. And then she noticed Spike standing there, waiting for her.
"Oh, hi, Spike."
What are you doing down here?
Spike worried.
I thought you were going to be in your bed, and I could serve you breakfast. You really need to rest before the baby arrives.
"Sorry, I just wanted to look over the room one last time, make sure everything is in place."
That's my job for now. Here, let's go back upstairs and have some breakfast.
Twilight sighed and nodded. She scanned her eyes over the room one last time, just to remember it as well as she could, and she went up the stairs with Spike. Spike helped her with every step, making sure she didn't trip over or fall. She swore she could do it just fine, but there was no way he was going to make her do this alone. Later on, Twilight found herself tucked into bed by Spike himself. She laid flat on her side, making sure she was comfortable, and the position wouldn't bother her belly. Spike brought a tray to the bed, and he placed it around her waist. He put the bowl of cereal in front of her, and the bowl, well, it was overflowing in every single way. There was way too much cereal, and milk was pouring out of the sides.
"Thanks, Spike, but you really should get more sleep than that. When did you go to bed last night?"
2 in the morning, but that's not what matters for now. You come first.
Twilight smiled. She appreciated all of the effort he had gone to, and the cereal he had served was delicious. Meanwhile, Spike brought out a clawful of documents and spread them out on the study desk. He brought out his quill and looked at Twilight.
All right, here's the bills and royal duties for the day. Are you ready?
"Ready, but really, you should get some sleep after this."
Fine. The first one is from those construction workers designing your castle. They want to know if you would like a fountain by the castle entrance. What should I write?
That would be nice. There might be a river by the castle, but that would be a great thing to see when you first come in, wouldn't it? Check yes.
Spike crossed the box next to yes and went to the next scroll.
This one's from the mayor. She wants to expand Ponyville by 20% over the next 4 years. It's so that the town is closer to your castle.
Twilight nudged her front hooves together, more than a little uncomfortable with the idea.
I'm not sure. It's going to happen sooner or later, but I want more time to think about it.
Spike grabbed the scroll and shoved it into a drawer full of other scrolls, made just for these occasions.
Here's one. It's asking for a new holiday. They call it Princess Twilight Sparkle Day.
She raised an eyebrow.
And just what would this holiday have?
It would have everyone in Ponyville throw a big party for you. There would be a parade in your honor, and you would have a great big cake at the end of it. We would all say how awesome it is that you live in Ponyville, especially now that you're the best princess in the history of princesses.
Twilight giggled under her breath.
Let me guess. Did Pinky write this?
Spike examined the scroll closely.
Yep, that's her signature right there, with a doodle of you on top of that big cake next to it.
Twilight couldn't help but laugh.
It's just like her. Go tell her that she doesn't need a big holiday to make me feel special. That's what my birthday is for.
That's when the holiday would be. On your birthday.
Oh, well, I don't think that's necessary. Tell her she doesn't need...
Before she could finish, Spike was passed out on the study desk. He still had the quill in his hand, the tip of it right next to the no box. She laughed again, having seen Spike's lack of sleep finally catch up with him. but she grew nauseous out of the blue. Laughing like that sent her over the edge. Her stomach felt like a volcano ready to burst, and she felt her face heating up. She clenched her belly with her hooves, and she wanted to go to the restroom so badly. But moving one of her hooves at all only served to make her stomach more upset. So she looked for anything to use. There was a dust bucket right next to Spike, and she used the levitation spell to bring it to her bed. She pushed her snout into it, and what happened next is best left unsaid. Once she was finished, she put down the bucket and laid her head flat on the bed. She went from cheerful and ready for the day to spent and sleepy in no time. She looked down at her stomach and gave a weak smile.
I am not going to miss this part. But it will be worth it when I meet you for the first time.
Before she knew what was happening, she closed her eyes and went to sleep within minutes. Wind whistled around Twilight's ears, and the air was suddenly freezing around her. She thought it was just another symptom of her pregnancy at first, and she tried to go back to bed. Spike was right about one thing. She needed her rest, and to try not to overextend herself. But once she turned over to the other side, she heard her hooves press down on snow. That was when she knew something was wrong. She opened her eyes to see what was going on, and her jaw dropped when she realized where she was. The comfort of her bed had given way to a tundra, stretching out for miles and surrounded by mountains. The wind blew at her back, and the snow came down in pellets around her. There was nothing resembling life out there, other than Twilight herself. The alicorn freaked out from the sight, and her mind raced over all the reasons why she could be out here. Maybe Celestia brought her out here, or a dragon kidnapped her and dropped her off here to die from the cold. But none of those reasons fit into the puzzle. The very first thing that came to mind was her foal, and how her being out here would harm it. She clutched at her belly again, but what she felt there was the stuff of horror. There was no baby in her stomach. It was gone, seemingly never existed. On top of that, she felt armor across her body. She looked over herself and saw that she was decked in body armor. Her hooves had silver plates, her neck was covered in another plate, and a purple cape was flapping against the wind on her back. It was the same armor she wore when she was his queen. She found new reasons to panic, and she didn't know why this was happening again. The obvious answer that this was all a dream felt silly to her, because it was so vivid that she thought it was real. But she didn't know why this was happening at all. On top of that, she shed a tear when she realized that she wasn't with her child out there. Regardless how it was made, she wanted the baby to be hers as long as she knew she would have one. All the things she could teach him, the joy of seeing him grow up, all gone. Just like that. She cried where she was for a few minutes, the weight of it all hitting her like a brick to the face. Her tears froze up on her face, creating icy streaks on her cheeks. And then she saw something else. Up a few dozen feet, she spotted a few ponies laying flat on the ground. She couldn't make them out through the snow that well, but she could see that they were ponies. She ran to their aid without a second thought. Maybe they could tell her what was going on, but the closer she came to them, the more her heart sank. She recognized them as royal guards, much like the ones from her darkest memories. They were 8 in number, wearing the usual guard armor. They were all collapsed on their sides, and some of them had blood coming out of their lips. None of them showed any signs of life. Not one. Twilight gasped at the sight, as it reminded her of memories she wanted to forget. But she had to make sure they were still alive. She came to the side of one of them and touched his neck to check for a pulse. Nothing. Neither did any of the other guards as she checked them one by one, hoping to Celestia that one of them was still alive. Once she realized that none of them were, She sat down on the frozen snow and cried again. Something in her heart made her feel like she was responsible, and she hated herself for letting it happen. She sat there, crying her heart out for a little while, allowing the snowdrifts to take over her. Then she felt a warm hoof on her shoulder. She didn't mind it one bit at first, and a part of her almost welcomed it. She didn't know whose it was, but given how bad this day was for her, any love and attention was needed. Once she felt the pony's hooves wrap around her stomach, she leaned back and allowed the pony to embrace her.
I don't know what happened.
Twilight whimpered.
I found them like this, but I feel like I killed them. I'm so sorry.
You don't have to be.
Her eyes widened in fear. She would know that voice anywhere. She pulled away from the pony's hooves and faced the pony directly. Her face was frozen in shock when she saw who it was. Standing right there in front of her was King Sombra himself. He was clad in the armour he was most proud to wear, and his red cape flapped in the wind as well. His face was full of worry and affection for Twilight, and he reached a hoof out for her to take.
You don't have to do this alone, Twilight Sparkle. I am here now.
Twilight shook her head. Her brain was not believing what she was seeing, but her heart was desperately wanting this to be real. There was no way this could be happening. It broke every logical rule of the universe, and yet she wanted to run into his hooves so badly. But her brain was winning, and she took a few steps away from the King of Shadows. He matched every step she took, keeping the distance between the two close.
No, it can't be. I saw you die. I watched you die with my own eyes. And your body was buried in this very place. There's no way this can be happening.
I came back from the grave once before, remember? But that is not important. I am here for you again. You don't have to raise the fall alone anymore.
Twilight still shook her head, her heart torn into pieces by the sight of Sombra. But she remembered all the things he had done to her, and she knew what she had to do. She turned tail and ran as fast as she could away from him. She leapt over all the bodies and scrambled to the mountains, wanting to use her wings to get up as high as she could. The same thing wasn't going to happen to her again. As soon as she ran away, an aura of dark magic surrounded Sombra's body. His pony form disappeared into a cloud of dark mist, and he vanished into the cloud completely. Once he took his shadow form, he came after Twilight, his green-tinted eyes still visible within his new form. Twilight gazed over her shoulder, and she almost screamed when she saw what was coming for her. Her hooves galloped over the snow as fast as she could, but she was never fast enough. She could feel his presence getting closer.
Twilight, don't go. We could be together forever, as you wanted.
The black cloud shouted. The sentence struck a chord within her, and her heart took over her instincts. She couldn't help but think of how deep their love really was, and deep down, a part of her wanted to feel his embrace. So she stopped in her tracks and turned around. She extended her forelegs to the cloud, all while tears poured down her face.
I do want you, and I hate myself for it.
The dark cloud descended around her, filling the air with his magic. She closed her eyes and allowed herself to get swept up in it, giving herself up for him. She felt his embrace through the mist, going beyond any logic that she knew. She welcomed it very much, but she still hated herself for giving in. But what she did not know was that they weren't alone. She couldn't see the pony herself. It was many feet away from where she was. The pony was dark blue, carrying sandals on all of her hooves. She wore a crown on her head, and the moon was surrounded by an inky spot on her flank. She arrived to see Twilight consumed by the dark cloud of Sombra, and she was deeply saddened by the visual. She also noticed the 8 bodies of the guards surrounding her, and even a pony as dignified as her was tempted to cry.
You are a deeply troubled soul even now, Twilight Sparkle,
Princess Luna said.
and I will not allow you to carry this burden alone any more.
The tundra began to collapse around her. The ground cracked into a million pieces and flew up into the sky, and so did the bodies of the guards. Luna realized the dream was ending soon, and she flapped her wings to reach the sky. Before she left the dream altogether, she spotted Twilight down below, looking up to the sky. Maybe she saw Luna, but the Princess of the Night herself wasn't sure. Luna's vision stopped glowing white and went back to normal as she left the dream. Her blue irises returned to her eyes, and she got her bearings back in reality. She found herself on her castle's watchtower, just as she was right before she travelled into the dreamscape. Usually, when she returned from the land of dreams, she would feel as refreshed as any pony after a good night's sleep. She might even be happy with herself, as she helped solve another pony's problems. But this time, she felt a sense of urgency she rarely felt before. There was no way she could sit on a problem like this. Luna exited the watchtower and galloped through the hallway of the castle soon after. She heard where Celestia would be that day, and she wanted an audience with her immediately. Yes, Tia might be upset that she would interrupt her morning, but she would understand once she got the news. Eventually she arrived at the entrance of the central dining hall. There were 2 guards watching over it, and they bowed to her at first sight.
"Welcome, Your Majesty. Shouldn't you be resting at this hour?"
One of the guards said.
"It's 8 in the morning.
No, I must speak with my sister at once. I demand entry inside.
But she's in a breakfast meeting over the upcoming Equestria Games. Can it wait?"
No, it's concerning Princess Twilight.
That got their attention fast. They opened the door quickly for Luna, and she dashed inside as soon as she could. The dining hall had a long table at its centre, and Celestia was indeed having a meeting with a few officials. Most of them were ponies. A few griffins from a faraway kingdom were there as well. Most of them had plates of breakfast food, making the meeting that much more tolerable.
Now these Equestria Games will have the most secure facilities you can imagine, I assure you.
Celestia said.
The prince is even a former captain of our guard, so he knows security better than...
She stopped her sentence as every head in the room turned to Luna. The Moon Princess looked like she was worried and agitated, something that made everyone concerned for her.
I apologize for this interruption, but I need a private audience with my sister,
Luna explained.
This is a very urgent matter at Hoof for us.
Celestia sighed, a little upset over her sister's actions.
Are you sure it cannot wait? This meeting is also very urgent. More urgent than Princess Twilight?
Celestia's eyes widened.
Oh, that matter. I'm sorry, but she's right. I need some time with her alone. We'll resume the meeting as soon as we're finished.
The officials grumbled under their breath as they got up from their chairs. They departed the dining hall out of the main entrance, and the guards closed the door behind them. Luna proceeded to lock the door with her key, wanting this meeting to be as private as possible. She took a seat opposite Celestia, and her eyes, full of weary thoughts, said it all. Celestia leaned forward as she began.
Have her dreams gotten any worse? Much worse. The dreams are growing more frequent as time goes on, and each one is more terrifying than the last one. And Sombra was in this one, wasn't he? Yes. He was her comforter, her protector when she found the bodies of those 8 royal guards. No doubt memories of her assistance in their murders are plaguing her dreams. It's just as I feared. She needs more help when it comes to this, especially before the foal is due. It's his foal as well, and I don't want her memories of him getting in the way of raising her child. When is the foal due, sister? I confess that I have forgotten. Her doctor says the colt is due in 2 weeks, but that's not important right now. I think I know what we need to do for her sake. And what would that be? I'm going to offer her the opportunity to stay at our castle for the remainder of her pregnancy, up to the 1st month after the foal is born. And you plan for us to help her finally solve her sombra problem, are you not? Of course. Do you mind doing something for me during that time? I want you to go into her dreams when she is here, and help her there like you normally would.
Luna gleamed in delight.
That is one of my favorite royal duties, so I will do that with pleasure. But be sure to invite her friends to Canterlot when she is close. You know how she is with her friends. Of course. And I'll make preparations now for the delivery. But first things first.
She pulled out a scroll to write on, and brought a quill next to the paper. Scrolls and quills were in nearly every room in the castle, in case of writing emergencies. She began writing her letter, and finished with the following.
My faithful fellow princess, Twilight Sparkle. I hear that the foal is due soon, and I'm sure you're excited about him as much as your friends, family, and we are. This is a big moment for any pony, and we couldn't be happier for you. That is why Luna and I are offering something for you for this occasion. If you want to, you can stay with us at the castle for the remainder of your pregnancy. We would be able to have a room ready for you to deliver the foal when the time comes, and your friends can stay in the guest bedrooms when they can. And your parents are in the area, so this would be very convenient for them. Of course, you can go to the hospital in Ponyville if you wish, but we want you to know that the doors are open, if you are interested. Wish you luck, Princess Celestia.
She sealed the letter with her stamp of approval, and used her magic to make it into a wisp in the air. It left the room, and travelled all the way to Ponyville.
What do you think she will say?
Luna asked.
Knowing her, she's already reading.
A letter appeared in front of her immediately, and it dropped down to the table. Celestia opened it at once, and read its contents. A smile formed on her lips as she read it.
Remind me to prepare the castle for a third princess once the meeting is over.
She grinned.
Princess Twilight Sparkle is coming over.
Chapter 2. Light Breaking Through.
Are you sure we need all of these bags, Spike?
Yeah, I'm sure we need all of them. You're probably going to be gone for like a month and a half. Why wouldn't you need all of them?
It's just... Have you ever seen how many bags Rarity carries around when she's traveling? This is like twice that amount.
It was early morning the next day, and Twilight was waiting outside for her ride to Canterlot. She was told to wait outside for a chariot to pick her up at her house, and that was what she did to pass the time. Her stomach felt upset at times, but it was nothing like it was yesterday. She kept her composure whenever possible, and she was holding up well. At least for this early in the day. And yet, she wasn't focusing on her stomach or when the chariot would arrive. Instead, her attention was paid to the tower of bags in front of her, assembled by Spike himself. Most of the bags were filled to the brim with books, and the others had her clothes and other things. It was a huge, huge pile, one that was way more than what she needed.
Exactly.
Spike continued.
I really want you to be comfortable and have everything you might want while you're up there. Though, if you really think it's too much, I guess I can put some of it back.
I want you to do that for me, if you don't mind.
Twilight said, as politely as she could.
Don't you remember Celestia's library? They have more books than I can imagine, so we really don't need to carry all of that stuff around with us while we're up there.
Most of the time, Spike would be embarrassed or distraught, feeling like he went way too far with his preparations. But on this occasion, he seemed delighted about it.
Of course, and I don't think that the chariot would carry all of those books in the first place. Let me take care of that for you.
He went to work immediately and grabbed 2 book bags with his claws. The baby dragon ran into the house to put them away and came back outside just as quickly. He kept repeating the same 2 steps again and again, making the pile smaller and more manageable. At the pace he was going, it was almost like he was moving at Pinkie Pie speeds. It would still take a while to shrink down, and it gave Twilight a moment to think before the chariot arrived. As she did a lot during the last few months, she gazed down at her belly and thought of the foal inside. She sat down on her flank and rubbed over her belly with her forelegs again, something that had become a habit for her. Truth be told, her original plan was to have the foal at the Ponyville Hospital. It was so close to her house, and her experiences with the doctors there were pleasant and comfortable. It seemed like the perfect place to have a child. That is, until she got the offer from Celestia. She really wanted the best for her child, and there was no place she could imagine better than in Canterlot. Her foal would be well looked after, and Celestia herself would be there to help. But the more she thought about the colt, the more she thought about his father. It crept up on her subtly, until it had invaded her mind completely. The way he talked about having a child with her when they were together, and the things he was saying in her nightmares. She shivered as he occupied her every thought. She tried to push him out in order to prove that she moved on, and then she remembered how much she wanted him in her dreams.
There! All done!
Twilight opened her eyes, Spike's voice bringing her back to reality. The pile of bags was less than a quarter of its size by now, and the dragon was sweating from all of his hard work.
I'm done with everything now. That covers every bag with books inside. I feel like I'm going to pass out now.
Spike admitted. Twilight smiled.
That's perfect. That's all we need now.
Spike wiped the sweat off his forehead and sighed in relief. He leaned against the smaller pile of bags to rest.
That's what I was hoping you'd say.
Hey, is it just me, or have we been waiting a while?
Twilight thought openly.
I hope they're not late or anything.
As soon as she closed her mouth, she heard the sound of hooves galloping and wheels churning. It was coming from the road leading to Canterlot, and it was getting closer. The princess and the dragon turned their heads to see who it would be. Sure enough, a chariot arrived at Twilight's house. It looked like the sort of chariot Celestia used, big and roomy. 4 guards manned the chariot, all Pegasi, and they came to a complete stop in front of the purple alicorn. One of the guards took the yoke off his back, and he came forward to greet Princess Twilight.
Your Majesty, Princess Celestia sent us to take you away to Canterlot. Do you need help with any of your luggage?
He said, noting the pile of bags next to her.
No, I can take it from here.
Twilight used her levitation spell to pick up the luggage in the air, and hovered them towards the back of the carriage. Spike seemed a little disappointed that he couldn't do it for himself, but at least the job was done.
Very well, come with us, and we can depart for Canterlot.
And so Twilight and Spike went inside the carriage, Spike allowing Twilight to go first. They got themselves comfortable, and the guard shut the door behind them. Once they were inside, he strapped himself back into the yoke and motioned to the other guards to get ready for departure. They turned and ran back in the direction they had came, the road that would lead them to Canterlot. They flapped their wings as they prepared to take off.
Wait! Don't fly!
Spike cried. The guards stopped in their tracks, and the wheels dragged against the ground as the chariot came to a complete stop. They looked to Spike, both confused and angry that he would say such a thing.
And why not? Flying is the fastest way from here,
the captain mentioned.
Twilight's pregnant, remember? Flying could make her stomach really upset. And I'm not sure what else she would do if we were in the sky.
The captain slapped himself in the face.
Why did I not think of that? You are correct about this, young dragon. Let us take to the ground as long as we can with this chariot.
Spike sighed in relief, feeling like he had just diverted another crisis. The next thing he knew, Twilight hugged him and smiled.
I'm glad you're here, Spike. I'm not sure where I would be without you.
Spike smiled as well, and they began the long road to Canterlot together. The ride there was surprisingly nice and peaceful. The stallions made a conscious effort to take the easiest path possible, so the princess would not be disturbed on the way. And so their path brought them through many valleys and streams, with a few forests to break things up. It was a nice scenic route, one that would take a couple of hours to pass. In the meantime, Twilight used her time to think about what was coming. There was no doubt that she would receive great care at the castle, but it perplexed her all the same that she was invited at all. She couldn't place a hoof on it, but she felt something was off about it. Then again, she swore that she saw Luna in one of her dreams just the other day. In fact, now that she was thinking about it, she saw her in a lot of dreams lately. That got her thinking about the sort of dreams she had been having. Then she realized they all had one thing in common. Sombra was in them, in one way or another.
Look, we're almost here!
Spike yelled. Twilight looked up ahead, and Canterlot was indeed within their sights. It was sparkling with radiance just as it was every time she had been there. The guards took the long, steep stone road to get there from the valley below. They were careful with their efforts, making sure they would not slip and risk her safety, until they arrived at the gates of Canterlot safely. The ponies watching over the city spotted the chariot of Princess Twilight Sparkle approaching, and they opened the gates for her entry. Twilight waved to them as she passed by the entrance, and the chariot passed through the streets for Celestia's castle. The chariot came into the castle's courtyard soon after, and Twilight was both surprised and relieved at the low-key welcoming party waiting for her. There was a captain there, a stallion with a uniform signalling his position, and a few other guards of his own. That was it, and not even Celestia was there for the occasion. The chariot came to a complete stop, and as soon as they arrived, the guards dismounted from their yokes. 2 of them went to work taking the luggage inside, while the other 2 opened the side doors for Twilight and Spike. They exited the chariot, and the captain stepped forward to greet them. He was a stallion in his late 20s, brown coat and black mane.
Hello, my name is Sergeant Groundpound. Celestia is in the middle of a meeting at the moment, so she wanted me to show you a tour around the place.
Thank you, but I'm sure I can take it from here. I know this place better than my fillyhood home.
Yes, but we've been working to prepare the castle for your delivery.
My delivery?
Yes, we felt like you deserved the best treatment in Equestria, so one of the rooms has been redesigned as a hospital room of sorts. That way, when the time arrives, you can have the foal in there without traveling. It's not the first time we've done something like this, if you can believe it.
That was very, very thoughtful of you.
Twilight blushed, not used to this level of attention. Well, save for from Pinkie Pie.
I'm ready to go in if you don't mind.
Of course. Right this way.
He led her into the castle, with Spike close behind. The other guards went back to their usual duties, and the courtyard went back to normal after a few minutes. As Twilight went on her way, something caught her attention at the corner of her eye. It was something over at the watchtower, and it struck her as unusual. Princess Luna was there, standing at the tower's balcony. Her eyes were fixed on Twilight, watching her every move. It reminded the purple alicorn of all the time she thought Luna was in her dreams, and it made her a little nervous.
What is she up to?
She thought to herself.
Maybe she's the one who wanted me over here.
The alicorn and the dragon went inside the castle, and Groundpound led them through its hallways. They eventually arrived at a room that Twilight remembered as one of the guest bedrooms, but when she stepped inside, it was nothing like its original form. The walls were as white as Celestia's coat, and the bed was replaced by a hospital one. All kinds of medical equipment were laid out near it, and a doctor was busy testing them out. A wall separated the entrance from the bed, and a glass window allowed them to peer inside. Twilight was amused, loving the attention to detail that Celestia had shown her. She pressed her face to the window and looked at the bed, thinking about what she would be doing there.
We're thinking about making it a permanent part of the castle,
Groundpound stated.
You know, in case Celestia or Luna are in danger. So what do you think?
I think it's amazing.
Twilight said, still amazed.
I just can't believe Celestia would do all of this for me.
Are you kidding?
Spike smirked.
You've saved her life twice, brought her sister back to safety, and saved all of Equestria many times. If anything, she owes you for this.
Twilight was tempted to glare at him until she thought about what he had said.
You know what? You're right. I just didn't want to ask favors from her. But this is a nice reward, don't you think?
Groundpound wanted to slap them both for saying such things about Princess Celestia of all ponies. but ultimately held back on his urges.
It's been a long trip for both of you, I imagine. Do you wish to rest in one of our lounge rooms? Celestia will meet you there once the meeting is over.
That sounds wonderful.
Twilight admitted.
And that concludes the first volume of my lessons on the elemental spells. As you can see, they span many types, so many that one volume could not contain them all. Still, I hope what little I could teach in this book will help you in your lifetime. Star Swirl the Bearded.
Twilight closed the back cover of the book once it was finished, and she put it into a pile with the 2 other books she had finished. She adjusted herself on the pillow to get more comfortable, and she picked up one of her favourite Daring Do books to start reading. With books like these, killing time was easy. The lounge room was nice and quiet, almost like a nursery for full-grown stallions and mares. There were pillows all over the place to rest one's hooves on, and a fireplace kept the room nice and warm at all times. A few bookcases were off to the side, and most of the books were thankfully the sort of stuff she would read. As she began to read the first page, she groaned from the pain in her stomach. The fold kicked the inside of her belly, and this one hurt more than most. It caused her to drop the book to the ground, and she clenched herself around that part of her body. It was obvious that the foal was nearly due, given how large her stomach had gotten. That, and how painful the kicks were getting as of late.
Looks like you want out too.
She laughed weakly.
I'm thinking the same thing. For a foal, you kick as hard as Applejack.
But as soon as the pain subsided, she heard some pony come in. She scooted over to see who it was, and she squealed internally when she recognized her. Celestia came into the lounge room with her, her royal clothing missing. She was just her usual pony self, and it was a little strange for Twilight to see her naked. But the warm smile and comforting gaze she had melted all of those strange feelings away.
Celestia, I'm so glad to see you again.
Twilight gleamed. She tried to get on her hoofs to come and see her, but Celestia raised her hoof for her to stop.
You don't have to do that, Twilight, and it is always good to see you again,
greeted Celestia. She came over to Twilight's side and sat down on the pillow next to her. She leaned over and wrapped her neck around the purple alicorns, hugging her in a way.
And I just wanted to say, thank you for doing all of this for me,
Twilight added.
I know you probably wanted the best for me, but this is just great. I can't believe you installed that delivery room just for me. You're welcome. And I couldn't think of a better place to do it than here. Speaking of which...
Celestia looked down at Twilight's big belly and touched it with her bare hooves. Twilight giggled a bit, her stomach being sensitive ever since the pregnancy began.
It is a colt, is it not?
Celestia asked.
Yep, that's what the doctor told me a while back. Then it will be a prince. And with what Spike has been telling me, it sounds like you're thrilled.
Twilight nodded enthusiastically.
You have no idea. And as it should be. This should be a joyful occasion for you, and it will change your life forever. For the better, if you ask me. Trust me, I've been looking forward to it for a long time. Remember when we first met after you found out I was pregnant? You were so worried about me, but even then I thought it was wonderful. Actually, that's why I wanted to meet you now, rather than after the foal is due. I feel like we need to discuss this as soon as possible.
Twilight's ears went to the side as Celestia's tone went from kind and caring to emotional and mysterious in 5 seconds flat.
What is it about?
Celestia took a deep breath to get herself ready for what was coming.
Sombra.
All of the air was sucked out of the room. All signs of hope or joy escaped Twilight's face, and her emotions drained away just as quickly. It was quiet all of a sudden, and she was like a statue, frozen and expressionless. For the first time in her life, she saw Celestia's ears go down to the side. She was just as sad and solemn as Twilight was, something that almost never happened.
Is it about the dreams?
She cried.
I keep seeing Luna in them, and I know that's not a coincidence. I...
Celestia draped a wing over her former student and brought her even closer. She looked her straight in the eye, giving the purple alicorn no room to hide.
Please, don't hide this from me.
Celestia begged, her voice shakier than Twilight had ever heard it in her lifetime.
I don't know everything about you and your problems, but if you keep having nightmares with him in them, there has to be something to it. Please, tell me what is the matter. No pony else is here to hear you. It is just you and me.
Twilight's eyes watered, and she closed them at once. She didn't want to be like this, especially in front of her idol. But there was no hiding it,
I don't know what I want to do.
she confessed.
I keep thinking about him all the time. He was my lover when we lived in that castle together. We made this baby together,
She said as she looked down to her stomach.
and I loved him so much. I'm terrified that I'm never going to find another stallion that I love like him again, and I feel like I should be punished for admitting that. And I know I told you that we didn't need to worry about the full growing up like Sombra when we met by that lake, but I worry about it all the time. I don't want any pony to be like him. I've been planning so much of his life already, and then when I realized that he might not be like the stallion I want him to be, and that he might actually be like Sombra in a few ways. And I don't know what I'm going to do!
Twilight cried, the tears pouring out of her now.
I don't know if I'm preparing the right way for his future, and I don't know what to do if he's like Sombra at all. I don't know how to get past the fact that I still love Sombra.
Once she was finished, she buried her face in the pillow and cried her soul out. She covered her head with her wings, not bearing to be seen by some pony as perfect as Celestia, not when she was this pathetic. And yet, what happened next surprised her. She felt a pair of white hooves wrap around her neck, embracing her with more love than she knew what to do with. She felt tears drip down to her body, those not her own. She looked up and saw Celestia's face full of tears. Never in her life had she seen her teacher have an expression so full of love before, and all Celestia did was keep hugging her. Her eyes were shut as she did so, not giving a damn about anything else at that moment.
Oh, Twilight,
Celestia whispered, her voice giving out on her.
I love you so much, and I would never let feelings like these get in the way of that. Never feel like that again. Because it's wrong. So wrong.
Twilight was in shock over those words, and she didn't know what to think. But her mind was pushed aside in favour of her heart, and she hugged Celestia back as much as she could in her pregnant state. She didn't want to let go for a while, and that's what would happen. Neither one of them said anything for minutes, allowing a sweet silence to wash over them.
Please tell me I'll be a good mother.
Twilight eventually said.
Twilight, you'll be a great mother.
Celestia finally answered.
I know it better than any pony. I've seen you take care of Spike like he was your family. He is a part of your family now. But he wasn't at the start, and you took such great care of him. And the preparations you've made for the foal, I've never seen any mother do the things you've done for him.
Twilight wiped her face clean of the tears, and she began to smile again.
Really? Really.
Celestia nodded.
I know this from the bottom of my heart. You will be a great mother. But do not panic if he resembles Sombra in some ways. He is his child as much as yours. But you alone will raise him, make him good, and not one who will follow in his father's footsteps.
That calmed Twilight down a lot, and the tears were almost gone.
Thank you. You will never know how badly I needed to hear you say that. But I feel better about it.
That warmed Celestia's heart like few others.
You're welcome, and I will always be here for you if you need it. I want to be that pony for you. But what should I do about the fact that I still love Sombra?
Twilight added.
That one will take time, I admit. And there are some things that even I can't help you with. But I think I know the pony who can. Okay?
Twilight said, a little surprised to hear that from some pony as wise as Celestia.
When can I meet this pony? Tonight. Trust me, this pony will have all answers for you.
As she said that, her head turned to the entrance. The door creaked on its hinges, and she could see a familiar blue pony waiting there, observing the proceedings as they happened. After Celestia finished her thought, Luna nodded her head in understanding. She left the lounge room, seemingly never there to begin with, as far as Twilight was concerned.
Whew. Well, I hope you enjoyed the reading. If you did, please like the video and maybe share it with a friend. I'm hoping to have part 2 up within the next few months, but no promises. If you want to know when the next part is up, and if you're new to the channel, then hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you know as soon as it comes out. Special thanks again to Limey for providing the narration to this fic. Please check out his channel. He does fic readings on there as well. And if you like what you see, or hear rather, subscribe to him as well. He even has a reading that we did together over on his channel. Link to that, as well as his channel, will of course be in the description. Also, just so you know, I'll be posting another video later this week, possibly even as soon as tomorrow. It's a little pet project that I've been setting up to do for a while now to kind of ring out the new year. In the meantime, I'd like to wish everyone a late Christmas and an amazing new year. My resolution for 2018 is to upload more videos this year, which shouldn't be too hard given that this is the only 2017 video I've uploaded. Huh. You know, now that I think about it, I should probably record an update video in the near future letting you guys know where I've been for the past year and a half. Maybe next week. Anyway guys, hope you have a great day, an even better year, and I will see you all next time.
Crystals. Okay. I got it. Okay. You don't have to be. I'm Batman. No, Batman! I'm back. It's the return of Batman, the Royal Guard Batman. I'm Batman.
I apologize for this interruption, but I need a private audience with my sister.
Oh wait, that's Luna talking, not Celeste. Shit. Okay.
Your Majesty, Princess Celestia has sent us to take you away to Canterlot.
Ran out of breath.
Hello, my name is Sergeant Groundpound. I mean Batman. I'm Sergeant Batman! Batman!
And I just wanted to say, thank you for doing...
Oh, wait, that's Twilight, not Celestia. Fuck.
And I just wanted to And the preparations you've made for the foal? I've never seen any mother do the things you've done for him.
Really? Really? Because, you know, every mother does the things that she's been doing. Like, all of them. Just, really? That line? You're gonna use that line? That is so... ugh.
Really?
No, not really.
Really?